Okay, so let's go to this next slide here. I'm going to try, last week we tried a different style of teaching, like I said. I'm going to do the same thing again this week, but I'm going to try and improve upon it. So what that means is I'm going to try and make the point shorter, which apparently is an impossible task for me to do. I've got this problem at home where I ramble. I'll just start talking to Allie, and she could like clock out and not even give me a fake, yeah, okay. And I just keep going, thinking that I've got the attention of everybody in the room. So trying to eliminate that from my speaking. I watched a message 2 weeks ago, and that was the strategy that this guy took. It was just short, succinct, truthful points. It's very technical. So I'm going to try that again, and then I'm also going to try another new thing today, and we'll get into that in a minute. If you remember last week, before we get into this, right, we talked about how Jesus feeds the 5,000. And if you wanted a refresher on that, it's that you can serve God with whatever you have, wherever you are, right? The boy had 2 fish and 5 loaves. But Jesus multiplies even our small resources to make a huge impact, whatever it's needed, right? So if we give all of ourselves, even, and I had the example of, could Josh have made as much of an impact at Chicken Coop as he could at this church? With man, that's impossible, but with God, all things are possible, right? All of our lives are equally significant. The poor widow gave more of an offering, even though it was a far less amount, it was a much greater substance to God. Okay, so that was last week's message. And this week we're going to talk about another part in that chapter. And this is going to be more about Jesus' teaching. Because in our series, Discovering Jesus, we're looking at 2 things. Kind of just Jesus' actions and what he does and what he's like. And then the second focus is, what does he actually say? Right? So if we're trying to like see who's this Jesus guy anyway, we want to kind of try and break down, here's what Jesus, this is his bread and butter, right? This is what he actually talks about. And that's going to be one of the things that we talk about today. So let's turn to John chapter 6. And we're going to start in we're going to read verse 14 and 15. And then we're going to jump to verse 24 and 26 and continue on from there. Matthew, Mark, Jim, John. That's going to be in the 900s. 998. Thank you, Jimmy. And again, we're going to start in verse 14. So this is immediately after all of these people experience this great miracle of the 5,000 people being fed. It's not the theme song, actually. It's the waiting for people to fill in their answers song. I don't know if Jeffrey has these. That's all irrelevant. Don't leave here thinking, you know what I learned today? Whatever. Jeopardy's popular song is not actually its theme song. I can do a great Johnny impression. This is Jeopardy!
Don't give up anything, Jeff.
Thank you, John. Okay, so let's go to verse 14 here and read what this has to say. Remember, this is after the 5,000. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began saying, "Surely this is the prophet who has come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. And now we're going to skip down to verse 25. Before we read that, I just want to give an overview of what that says. So Jesus goes off on a mountain by himself to pray, which is relevant. We've already mentioned that in this series. You've got to take time, set aside time to pray if you want to pray like Jesus, right? You can't be like, oh, well, I'm doing this other thing, I'll multitask and pray. No, our prayer time has to be deliberate time set aside with God. Right? So this is another example of Jesus doing that. But then the disciples cross this big lake, and there's this big story about Jesus walking on the water, and he goes to the disciples, and bada boom, bada bing, it's all good. They get to the other side, and then all the people are like, where'd he go? And then they cross over as well to the other side of this, and they meet him over there. So that's where we're going to pick up in verse 25. With the people, remember, it's a huge amount of people. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, "Rabbi, when did you get here?" Jesus answered, "Very truly I tell you, that you are looking for me not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill." Let's stop right there. because this part of the sermon, I'm going to bring up at the very end. But the first thing we can learn from this part is when the people experience a miracle, so they wanted Jesus to be our king, their king. I went to college. The people experienced a miracle, so they wanted Jesus to be their king. Right? And this same thing happens to us in our lives. And Jesus even calls them out. He says, it's not because you saw something miraculous. It's not because you saw this God thing or saw a miracle happen. You experienced it. You went through it. You didn't see the loaves of someone else get fed. You ate of the loaves yourselves. So now you're all in. And the same thing happens with us, right? When it's easy to follow God when we experience a miracle, right? Our faith is so strong when Jesus does something directly in our life. Now when we see some kind of God thing happen to our family or our friends or the general public or whatever, those things might inspire us a little bit. But when God works in our lives, right, it's easy to follow God. Our faith is strong. It seems like, no, I'm never going to turn away or be confused or have any doubt when Jesus is working in our lives. So it's important to remember those times. And we'll see at the end of this chapter the folly of not remembering those times. Right? If we want our faith to always be strong, you got to hold on to the miracles that Jesus has done in your life. And let them motivate you to follow Him all the time. Right? Because if you forget about those miracles, if God does something in your life and then you just kind of naturally let it go and go, oh, that was nice, and then you move on with your life, your faith will suffer. Right? But Jesus, and this is a biblical concept that we see over and over and over again, you've got to reflect on the things that God has done in your life. Right? Remember the miracles that you've gone through yourself. Right? Joshua builds an altar. Moses builds an altar. David writes it on the tablet of his heart. All of these guys do things in their lives to solidify the memory of God's work in their life. And we should too. I had a pastor tell me one time, every time God does something in your life, write it on a journal. Right? I don't know if that's always the right thing to do, but it's good advice. Because we've got to remember, the Douglas pencil is still stronger than the sharpest one. Go back one. I got one other point. When we experience miracles, we do the same. It's easy to have faith when Jesus does something miraculous for us. I did just talk about that, but it's on the screen, so I got to read it. Okay, next slide. The other different thing that we're going to do today is I want to keep you guys on your toes, right? Not have church fatigue. I don't know why I'm using this voice. Is I'm going to break down the main points of Jesus' big chunk of teaching that's going to come next before we read it, right? Because what happens in this teaching, first of all, is very rich. There's a lot to it. He's speaking to a specific arguments, and the reason why it's kind of rich is because it's in classic Jesus speech, and it's very cryptic. Right? He uses a lot of allegory or analogy, which means that he's using an example not literally to convey some great truth to us through almost in very layman's terms like a riddle or poetry or whatever. Right? So when you read it, you kind of go, oh, what's he talking about? So before we read it, I'm going to get most of the points out of the way today, and I want you to recognize the points and then kind of pick it up as we go along. And no doubt I will certainly stop when a point comes up for me. Go. Okay. So here's the first thing. The first thing that we need to know about this teaching is that Jesus is speaking to a specific audience in the passage. And he's speaking to the Jews. Right? The Jews abided by the law. If you don't know what the law is, it's the thing that God used, right? It was his religious system passed on through Moses. So it's like the Ten Commandments in the 30 years after that, and then a couple more 100 years after that, God's law was being formulated, right? And that was how people got reconciled to God and how they achieved eternal life was abiding by this law, right? And so they were all very religious. And they all knew the God that Jesus said he was from, right? So Jesus was speaking to them and telling them some very specific things that they had wrong. His message was that he himself was the way to heaven and to be in good standing with God, not the law. That was totally contrary to what they thought. They misinterpreted God's law for God himself. And this is what comes up in the passage. Jesus says to them, you think that Moses is who saves you. You think that your righteousness is what saves you. It's not. It's God. And he's continuing with that thought saying, God saved you through the law, and now he's saving you through me. It's very relevant to us because this is the lesson we can take from it that's often put into our Christianity. Listen up, because we all need to remember this all the time. Because this is what they thought. So here we go. It's not religion or rule keeping that makes us right with God. It's Jesus. It's God's mercy. It's God's love. It's Jesus. It's Jesus' sacrifice on the cross for us that reconciles us to God. In a way, we can make the analogy that the Jews' standard of living, right, and if they kept that standard of living, that's what got them into heaven. That's what got them to be in good standing with God. Jesus says, no. It wasn't even that way then. It was God that brought you into good standing with himself. Right? But how it's relatable to us, it's not being a good person. It's not even being a good Christian that makes us reconcile to God. It's Christ. Right? Jesus, they even ask in the passage, well, what are the works of God that we need to do? What are these good things that we need to accomplish to be in the right standing with God? And Jesus says, to believe on the one whom God has sent. Those are the works of God, to accept Christ and to know Jesus. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this, and we talk about this quite often, so I won't spend too much time on it. We've already talked about it in this series. I might breeze over it a little more than I normally would. But it's this, consider eternity. Right? Jesus says, don't just live your life for life here on earth. Jesus is referencing heavily heaven. Hey, earth doesn't last forever, your moral life doesn't last forever, but your eternal life does. Think about the consequence of death and life after death. Life on earth isn't forever, but heaven is. Don't have all your hopes and dreams lying your time on earth, but consider eternity. And then more specifically on that point, Jesus is the only gateway to eternity. He's the substance that lasts forever. Right? Again, if we talk about this article, this argument all the time. There's a lot of people in the world right now who say, we're just space ghosts. Our lives are totally insignificant. Nothing matters. Even if there was a chain reaction of good, and your good deed today echoed thousands of years from now, the secularists would say, even if your small good deed did echo to make the life better of a million people, eventually all those people will die. The earth will crash into the sun or whatever, and it'll all go away and nothing happens, right? But Jesus says, and we believe, it does matter. There is an end game. There is an eternity. There's an end that God will, there's a finish line that God has for us. So our actions do matter. And who the Father Christ does matter. So we shouldn't just be concerned with things on earth. First of all, because we might think that they don't last, but our actions do matter and they do last. Heaven will consider eternity. Here's a verse from Mark 8:36. What does it profit a person to gain the whole world but lose their soul? And the reason that this is appropriate today is because it's one of the main messages of Jesus. Right? Consider eternity. Our existence doesn't end when we die. And then finally, here's the third one. Happiness and fulfillment won't last if they're from anything but Jesus. Right? Stop trying to get fulfillment out of things that don't last. Stop trying to find fulfillment in things besides God. Because career, party, success, they might nourish us, they might fulfill us for a little while, but we get hungry. The main analogy over this whole passage is bread. Right? And Jesus, throughout the whole thing, says, stop working for bread that doesn't last. This is where we get the name of Jesus, bread of life. Because he's saying all of these things, that he's the nourishment, he's the sustenance, he's the substance that actually lasts. That is significant, right? And this is the first time that this really comes up in John's Gospel. is if you work for the flesh, you'll sow death. But if you work for the Spirit, you sow life. Right? There's a millennial mantra on Twitter right now. Or really it was 6 months ago, so I'm still relevant, it's okay. But what it said was, there's this popular thing on Twitter where people would tweet, let's get this bread. And if you don't know what that means, it means let's make this money. Right? Let's get after this day and be on our hustle. Right? Let's get this bread. Let's go get our paycheck. That's what you say when you go to work. Let's get this bread. It's an excitement and vigor to be successful and have fun. But Jesus is the opposite, right? He's not saying let's get this bread. He's saying let's get meat. Right? He's saying the bread that we get on earth, it doesn't last. Right? If your life is about career success, or if your life is about prestige, or even respect, if you're living for pleasure, right? Whatever it is, you always get hungry. If your life goal was, hey, I gotta make $10 billion, then I'll be set, and I'll be respected, and I'll find fulfillment. Jesus' prediction is, you won't find fulfillment. Whatever your goal that you have that isn't Jesus, if you think you'll get fulfillment from that, you will get some fulfillment from it, but you'll get hungry again. Right? The partying is a great example. Right? That you do forget your troubles if you get super drunk or high or whatever, or you go and you party. But Monday always rolls around. Right? The substances, they make you happy. They do nourish your spirit. You placate that hunger for fulfillment in your life. But there's no one. Right? And if you ask anybody who parties all the time, they all say the same thing. It gets old. I'm still not fulfilled. Right? I've got to eat more and more because it's not working. I always get hungry again. And that's what Jesus says will happen for anything but him. Okay, so let's go to the passage and let's read what Jesus says, and then we'll spot a couple things at the end. Some of the main points that we just talked about. So let's start in verse 25 again, and we're going to read quite a bit of this, so buckle in. Alright, here we go. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? Jesus answered, Very truly, I tell you, you are looking for me not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval. They asked him, What must we do to do the works of God? Jesus answered, The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. Someone say it's good. That's what God wants from us, to have a relationship with Christ. You know what I mean? Amen. That's it. That's what God wants. That's what being a Christian is. That's what following God is knowing Jesus. Right? We've already touched on a couple of these topics. Don't just live life on earth, right? Don't just work for food that won't fulfill you. Don't shoot for empty goals. Live your life in the Lord. Okay, let's move on. Verse 32. Jesus said to them, Very truly, I tell you. Oh no, let's do verse 30. So they asked him, What sign will you then give that we may see it and believe you? What will we do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, as it is written. He gave them bread from heaven to eat. Which is funny that they're asking this, because they all just got bread. Right? They all just got fed. Everyone gets hungry. Verse 32. Jesus said that, Very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world, referencing himself, right? Sir, they said, always give us this bread. That's a great bread. Verse 35, Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. He's not saying literally, right? Although he might
Jesus got us through life.
But he's saying if you try and find your fulfillment in me, if you try and find your life or your substance in me, I'll never let you. Verse 36. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. All those the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none, all those he has given me, but raise them up on the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day. So that's what God wants, is anyone who comes to Jesus to be reconciled, to be saved, to go to heaven, to live in peace. Right? Okay, verse 41. At this, the Jews there began to grumble about him because he said, I am the bread that's come down from heaven. They didn't like this. Verse 42. They said, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we knew? How can he not say, I came down from heaven? Stop grumbling among yourselves, Jesus answered. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, and I will raise them up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, they will all be taught by God. Everyone who has heard the Father and learned from him comes to me. And no one has seen the Father except the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father. Very truly I tell you, the one who believes has eternal life. Someone say it's good. See, this is really complex teaching because we start to think like, well, do we have a choice? Is it our choice? Because God draws us to him. I think that's about God is, again, just like it wasn't really the works that atonement to God. It was God himself, but the one who tried to do the works. Right? And the one who believes, God is the one who draws that one to reconciliation. Right? That's another message for another day. I don't want to break this down into predestination or free will, because it's a hard passage for it, right? There's evidence on both sides. But let's go back to 49, because the stuff we've already mentioned is very important. Very good. Or verse 48, I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven, which anyone may eat and not die. Someone say it's good. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. Then the Jews began to argue sharply amongst themselves, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? But they didn't understand. Let's pause right here. Jesus references this analogy of bread again later, and it's when he's explaining communion. Right? And what communion is we're taking a simple saying, I'm accepting the sacrifice of Christ for the punishment of my sins. We learn about it all the time in the Bible. You shouldn't take part in communion unless you've accepted Christ. Right? Unless you have this personal relationship with God. So when he says this stuff about eating my flesh, he's referencing this, this is my body broken for you. They still think it's literal. They think he's going to give them a finger and toss it to them, and then if they eat it, then they go to heaven and not. But if that was the case, this would all be pretty crazy, right? But they don't understand. Which this is a relevant side note. Sometimes Jesus says stuff, and we think it means one thing, but our wrong interpretation of what he says makes it really hard for us to believe. And if only we understood it, it would be far easier to believe these things. Okay, so let's get back to it. Verse 52. Then the Jews began to argue sharply amongst themselves. How can this man give us his flesh to eat? Verse 53. Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Unless you partake in the cross, right? Unless you are accepting this gift of Jesus on the cross, you don't have any part with Jesus, right? That is being a part of his people. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day. 55. For my flesh is real blood, my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. Amen? This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors ate manna and died, but whoever feeds on this bread will live forever. He said this while teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. Okay, let's stop there, and I want to revisit these 2 points. Jesus is the way to heaven, right? And anyone who believes will be accepted, verse 46. So that's what he's saying. Stop with the religiousness, it won't give you this eternal life. Stop with the being a good person or keeping the law, it won't give you the bread of life. The bread of life comes from God. It's manifested in Jesus, and take part in that, because that is the true bread of life. And then the second thing that I think is a little bit more of a subtle message is stop living for things that will not fulfill you. There's all these kinds of bread, this substance, right, that we try and live for, that won't fulfill us. They'll nourish us for a little while, but then we get hungry. The only thing that lasts is what we do for the Lord. I always thought this was kind of cheesy, but at chicken coop, on every cup, it had a saying, a little bit of a witness saying, and it said, this life will soon be past, only what's done for Christ will last. And I always thought, that's got to put on the cup, but anyway, that's all right. But it's true, right? That's what Jesus is saying in this. And we see this in our own lives. The only thing that really brings us fulfillment in any area of our life, and we saw this last week too, whether it's our work, our hobbies, whatever, they'll only fulfill us if we're doing them with the direction of serving the Lord, right? You can serve the Lord at your job. You can serve the Lord with your fun, with your family. But if you're doing anything to just serve yourself, it's going to leave you hungry, right? So, that's kind of the premises of Jesus' teaching here. Stop making your life about career. Stop making your life about success. God wants us to live for our relationship with Him. Not because He's selfish, not because He's narcissistic, right? But because that is going to be the best life for us, right? He's given us good bread. He's telling us where to get the best deals at the supermarket, right? He's letting us in on this tip that, hey, you know it, you already know this. Everything else besides me in your life will eventually make you unfulfilled. So eat what actually fulfills you. Pursue godliness, the only thing that's going to remain in your life. Okay, so that was that portion of the message. But I've got this last one. A king needs throne. Everyone wanted Jesus to be king when they experienced a miracle. But when they heard something that was confusing, they gave up. Let's go back to this passage here. And let's start in verse 59. We just read that. Verse 59. He said this while teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. On hearing it, many of his disciples said, "This is a hard teaching. Who can accept it?" Aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to him, "Does this offend you? Then what if you see the Son of Man ascend to where it was before? What if I'm real? The Spirit gives life. The flesh counts for nothing. The words I have spoken to you, they are full of spirit and life. Yet there are some of you who do not believe, for Jesus had known from the beginning which of them did not believe and who would betray him. He went on to say, this is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled him." Verse 66. From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. That's the event. That's that. This is good teaching too, that someone can actually experience Jesus and then give up, turn away. But look what happened. Everyone wanted Jesus to be king after they had eaten the loaves. When they experienced this miracle, it was easy to want Jesus to be their kingdom. But now that he said some hard stuff, now that they got a little confused, now that it doesn't make quite as much sense, they've just forgotten about that miracle, right? They just forgot about all that zeal that they had just at the beginning of this speech. We run into something in our faith that we're like, that doesn't quite make enough sense. And we just let that miracle go and walk away, just like all the world. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you're having a hard time keeping Jesus in the lead, right? Past 2 weeks we talked about Jesus is the good shepherd. If you're having a hard time following Jesus because, something stopped making sense, or, I don't quite feel it as much as I used to, you gotta remember the miracles, right? You gotta remember the times where God has worked in your life, right? Where God has those monumental moments of God. If you're following Jesus, you've had the times where Jesus had left you out of the battle. You gotta remember it. Look at what these disciples who have been with Jesus the whole time said. This is verse 67. This is what Jesus asked his 12 closest followers, right? You don't want to leave me too, do you? Jesus asked the 12. Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and to know that you are the Holy One of God. So these guys that have been hanging out with him this whole time, they've experienced God so much, they're not going to turn away even if it doesn't make sense. Right? It's important to spend time with God, the disciples' example, and to remember what He's done. Right? So when we come up on something difficult in the Bible, or we come at a time in our life when we're in the valley and we don't feel like God is moving, you've got to remember the times that Jesus has worked in your life. We talked about this 2 weeks ago with the valleys, right? When you're in the valley, fear no evil, and then expect the Lord. Right? You've seen God work in your life before, wait for Him to work again. How does the psalmist end the psalm in Psalm 23? Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. That follower of God knows. They know what to expect, they know what's going to happen, and we should too, right? And if we would remember the miracles that God has done in our life, it's easy to follow Him, even if we're not wise enough yet to understand some teaching. Even if our faith's not strong enough to understand God in the battle, right? Whatever it is, whether we're going through a hard time or don't understand something, we're not speaking in, when you remember the miracles, it's so easy to follow them. Okay. That's our message for today. Hope you got something. I hope you enjoyed that chapter 6. We're going to keep going next week. I certainly think that this is a doggy bag message, right? You got to go home. That's a long section of teaching. And it takes some hard thought, which we all say, I don't want to think while I read the Bible. You got it if you want to understand, right? So go home. If you feel like reading something else, read that chapter again and see what you think. Appreciate everyone being here. Save on some pizza after the service. We're going to sing a couple more songs and worship for just another minute, and then we'll be dismissed. So.